You tired of fighting games that look like this? Throw that shit in the trash, cause now you got Virtua Fighter. 3D polygons, free movement, moon jumping, Jeffrey fucking McWild. Time to nut up and play Virtua Fighter. Coming to an arcade near you. Might induce vomiting, leprosy, spontaneous combustion, and mild congestion. Junin Hayendayo, everybody. Virtua Fighter. A series that many people love, many people grew up with. A series that has seemingly fallen off the radar in recent years. With the exception of references in modern games and legacy re-releases, the series has seemingly died in 2012 with the console release of the game Virtua Fighter 5 Final Showdown. In the previous generations, we've seen a lot of fighting game franchises come back from the dead, as well as new franchises take form and take their hold in the video game industry. But Virtua Fighter hasn't been around to enjoy the fruits of the fighting game genre. So what happened? I have a few answers, and I think I got something here, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So before I get into the main content of the video, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. You hit the bell as well for notifications on future videos, and make sure you're following me on social media, Twitter, Instagrams @Zmings. You know what it is, and yeah, I think that does it for the intro. So let's get started. Round 1, fight! This is my fighting pose. Virtua Fighter was notable for being the first polygonal fighting game, released in 1993. I was only 1 year old when it released, but if my parents or siblings were irresponsible enough to take me to a Detroit arcade, my mind would have exploded. It isn't much to look at these days. Having recently played it at a Japanese arcade, it hasn't aged all too well too. But for the time, it must have been a revelation. 3D gaming wasn't established at the time, so breaking out with a 3D fighter at the arcade must have turned heads. Virtua Fighter 2 released in 1994 and is seen as the breakout game in the franchise. I'm playing it here via Yakuza Kiwami 2, and it's a bit rough around the edges, but still enjoyable. And tough, even on the easy mode. Pi kicks my ass no matter how hard I try. What I don't think people know about Virtua Fighter these days is that, back in its heyday, it was surprisingly big. Not to the extent of, say, Sonic the Hedgehog or Sakura Tyson, but it was popular. You had merch, an animated series, several spin-offs for the Game Gear and Saturn, including the very bizarre Virtua Fighter Kids on the Sega Saturn.
There's so many things wrong with this, I don't even know where to begin. While unsupervised, these children have been freebasing helium, and this is just a bizarre game. What was going through their minds?
Even Wolf Hawkfield was a real wrestler at a point in time in Japan, so you could see that Sega was really trying to make Virtua Fighter into a cash cow. Makes sense at the time, as fighting games were really popular. While doing research for this video, I also found out there are Virtua Fighter plushies. Yeah, you can get Virtua Fighter plushies of all of our favorite characters. And they're ugly. But on the upside, because they're ugly, they're really cheap. So if you need a good gift for your child, your spouse, for your loved one, why not buy them some cheap Virtua Fighter plushies? Because I'm not buying that crap. They're kind of ugly. But around the mid-90s is when Sega, and by extension Virtua Fighter, had issues. Sega was putting out too much hardware in the mid-90s, and it was alienating their fans. More importantly, Virtua Fighter saw a rough transition to the home market. The 32X version of Virtua Fighter 1 was solid, and definitely a reason to buy a 32X, but really, who bought a 32X? I wish I did. I like the thing for some stupid reason. Because it's awesome, duh. VF1 also had an infamous hack job for the Sega Saturn's US release that Sega later rectified with Virtua Fighter remakes. But by that point in time you had Virtua Fighter 2. And not the Genesis version, which Sega keeps porting. Sega, quit bringing back this version, unless you put in GGPO rollback into the next version. Even if this wasn't the case, Sega lost a lot of ground to Sony. While VF was doing fine on Sega hardware and at the arcades, Sony saw several unique fighters like Battle Arena Toshinden, Soul Edge, and biggest of all, Tekken on their platform. A lot of former VF staff worked on Tekken, so if it seemed like Tekken was just a ripoff of VF at first, that's why. We'll talk more about rival fighters later. Despite all of this, Virtua Fighter trucked on. VF3TB launched on the Dreamcast and did as well as it could have, and even after Sega left the hardware industry, Virtua Fighter 4 did well for itself on the PS2, leading to Virtua Fighter 5's arcade release in 2006. I'm playing Final Showdown here via Yakuza 6, and for a game that's essentially over a decade old, it still plays and looks very impressive. And this is where the series seemingly ended, with Virtua Fighter 5 Final Showdown, released in 2011 in arcades and landing a home release in 2012. So, what happened? I have a few ideas. First off, Virtua Fighter is a Sega property, so in the 90s only Sega owners and arcade goers enjoyed Virtua Fighter. That's fine, but remember, the PlayStation sold gangbusters, so more people were getting familiar with rival franchises like Tekken and the Soul series, which started to find their own identities and grow in popularity as they got more sequels. Speaking of identity, what was Virtua Fighters? Tekken started going insane with a crazy plot and some eye-catching character designs. Mortal Kombat always had the blood factor, and Dead or Alive and Soul Calibur had boobs. From a distance, Virtua Fighter is pretty bland, especially without the crazy customization. VF's plot is pretty threadbare to the point where it might as well not even exist. Characters don't have much personality beyond their outside appearance and one-liners. VF also never played the waifu angle. You know how much merch and outfits are out there for characters like Chun-Li, Cammy, Lily, Nina, and everyone in Dead or Alive? Sega could have done that with Pi, Sarah, or Vanessa, but they didn't. Speaking of appearance, as fun as VF is to play, it doesn't show that in gameplay. It's pretty basic with two characters trying to dodge and open each other up. Compared it to Tekken or Soul Calibur, which have huge special moves, crazy juggles, and combos, VF doesn't really have that from the outside. What it has is few core mechanics really expanded to make a very deep fighting system, but again, isn't really fun to look at from a spectator's perspective. Also, VF has a reputation for being difficult. Like, it takes a lot of time to master a single character in VF. That's true for any fighter. The skill ceiling is extremely high in VF. But the truth of the matter is, VF is very much a pick up and play game. I think anyone can pick up the game and have fun, like I am now. I think its reputation as a difficult game might have put off some people. And finally, many of Sega's key staff left the company, including series creator Yu Suzuki. Now, I'm not saying Sega can't create a new Virtua Fighter without the people like Yu Suzuki, but sometimes you need that creator there to help establish what made the series so big in the first place. However, I think the real reason behind VF's death is due to one thing: poor timing. Virtua Fighter 5 had a total of 3 console releases. Early 2007 for the PS3, later 2007 for the 360, and 2012 digitally for Final Showdown. 2007 was a bit too early. The HD era of gaming was new, and in 2007, not everyone upgraded to the new systems. That said, the PS3 version of Virtua Fighter 5 did do well in Japan and could be considered an early killer app for the platform. Another issue with the first version of Virtua Fighter 5 on PS3 was lack of online play, which would have been huge to it so early in the platform's life. The 360 version would later rectify that, at the expense of leaving PS3 owners in the dust. Also, this was all before Street Fighter 4 was announced and it revitalizing the fighting game genre in the mainstream. Had Virtua Fighter 5 been released on both platforms with online play in 2008 or 9, I think it would have sold a lot more. After a few years of silence, Virtua Fighter 5 Final Showdown released digitally on PS360. Despite, at the time, having the best netcode of any fighter, the lobby and matchmaking systems were shit though, it released just at the wrong time. It released in a busy year full of fighters, and being released digitally instead of physically, I don't think Sega really had a lot of confidence in the product. and they didn't promote it much outside of its release and a few tournaments like Sega Cup. That said, it did review well compared to other fighters. And that's where the mainline Virtua Fighter games have ended at time of writing. There were also 2 mobile games, but those don't count. But here's the weird thing, despite the series seemingly ending on a high note, Sega is still aware of the franchise. Akira and friends have appeared in other games such as Sonic All-Stars Racing, Project Cross Zone, Dead or Alive 5, and Dengeki Bunko Fighting Climax as playable characters. Which is a good thing because you can beat the shit out of that stupid Ramo chick with Akira. That show sucked and you weebs know it. Persona 3 Dancing had VF costumes for DLC, Akira himself appears as an assist trophy in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and him and Jackie have Mii costumes. This is what I have to do to pretend I'm playing Virtua Fighter 6, Sega. This isn't a way to live. Various Virtua Fighter games appear in the Yakuza games as playable arcade games, and the first Virtua Fighter is being touted as one of the reasons to pick up the Sega Mini Arcade. More recently, Akira and Pai will be throwing hands with Kenshiro in Fist of the North Stars mobile game. And Sega keeps promoting merch for Virtua Fighter 2, such as toys and clothes. And even people in the industry such as Masahiro Sakurai, Ed Boon, Katsuhiro Harada, and Childish Gambino hold the series in high regard. So Virtua Fighter, it's in this weird position where Sega is aware of the franchise and keeps bringing it back for nostalgia points, but isn't sure what to do with it. Well, Sega, if you want to win back fans, now might be the best time to bring back Virtua Fighter. Yeah! So, Virtua Fighter. One thing I didn't note in the video proper is that it was the first 3D fighter, which is cool and all, but the issue is when you're the first of something, unless you do something really crazy and really revolutionary, you're only going to be known for being the first of something. What's going to happen is your competitors, other people in the industry, they're going to look at your idea and see what you didn't do, and they're going to build upon it and take what should be your success and make something way bigger. Tekken and Soul Calibur weren't the first 3D fighters, but they saw what Virtua Fighter did and added in elements that game didn't have and made much bigger franchises than Virtua Fighter. I really hope Sega brings back Virtua Fighter. They do seem intent on letting us know that Virtua Fighter was a thing, and I really do think someone at Sega really wants to bring back the series. Maybe they don't have the time, maybe they don't have the resources, maybe they don't have the talent, or maybe it's just a market thing. Maybe they think the fighting game genre is just too flooded and Virtua Fighter 6 won't stand out. But you know what, Sega? I say nuts to that. Give us the Virtua Fighter 6. Make sure the gameplay is tight as ever. Some new characters, online play, get some guest characters in there like say Kazuma Kiryu, or maybe even the new guy Ichiban. And I think it'd be pretty dope. Or if you're not going to do that, just give us the old games in a collection, like the Samurai Showdown collection, all the games, rollback netcode, tutorial modes, training room, the works, and it will be 100% Gucci. And I think that does it for this video. So thank you for watching, everybody. If you enjoyed the content, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Hit the bell as well for notifications on future videos. Make sure you leave a like. That also helps out a lot. And leave me something in the comments. Let me know what you think about Virtua Fighter or what other franchise Sega should bring back from the dead. And also make sure, if you're not already, make sure you're following me on social media, Twitter, Instagram at ZMings. And with that, I think we're done here tonight. So take care, everybody. Stay safe, stay healthy, and yeah, I should end with a Virtua Fighter quote. I win!